Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Samsung Developers Conference. This is Android Central Live. This is Christina Warren from Mashable. I am Phil Nickinson from Android Central. Christina, how are you?
I'm awesome.
You're
awesome.
You're like one of those, I need a better name. You're like one of those 4-month friends, like friends I see every 4 months or
Yes.
so at events.
Yes, exactly. I like to say like conference friends.
I need a better, that's a better name than 4-month friend.
But you're dead on. We always run into each other at shows. Mobile World Congress. We
Yep.
saw each other at. I can't remember the last thing we saw each other at. But we run into each other at these things a lot.
They kind of blend in. And actually, I was going to tell you a minute ago, like some of the stuff we've seen here at Samsung was some of the stuff we saw at IFA in Berlin a month ago. So what has been kind of your favorite thing you've seen so far? It's day one. We've had the keynote. We've had a couple sessions, so not too much to pick from yet, but.
I love the multi-screen SDK.
Yeah.
I think that I'm a big proponent of the second screen and the multi-screens and using apps in the TV around context-based stuff to be able to give you, information on your phone that might be different than what you see on your TV, creating 10-foot experiences, that sort of stuff. And I thought that that was great. I love that they're taking kind of what Google and Netflix sort of dial and kind of going to the next level. I was talking with Tom from Pandora earlier, and he was talking about how they really like it because they can execute stuff and really build these full, web-compliant apps for the TV that execute on the TV but can still be controlled and interacted with from the phone. I think that there's a ton of opportunity there, especially when you start thinking about maybe even going to things where like I record video on my phone and I fling it to the TV and then I can interact with that content in real time.
Are we going to get to the end of the week where I'm going to be okay with watching TV and holding a phone like right here? Because I don't do that now. I don't want to. I want to like just veg out and watch what I'm watching.
See, what I find that I usually do is I veg out, I watch what I'm watching, but I usually have my phone or my tablet out too, and I'm surfing around, I'm on the web, I'm playing Candy Crush Saga.
I'm probably doing it more than I think.
Yeah, I would say you probably are. I mean, that's the thing. One thing that I find that's really aggravating a lot of times is, the TV episode of electronic programming guides are terrible. And even when they try to get better, they're terrible. And so even just having something as simple as being able to have in one great interface, being able to control and watch programming, to pick it on your tablet or your phone and then fling it over to the TV. Even that, to make it more seamless than it is right now, would be great, because I have a pretty nice NAS setup and I have a pretty extensive home media server set up, but not everybody can do that. And so I can do that with DLNA and I can do that with Wi-Fi Direct and some other things. But if you don't want to do that stuff, just be able to have the SDK built into these apps, which we all use anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's one thing that I found that's really interesting is that I used to have, and I still do, so much local content, but I don't access it that much anymore. Most of what I'm watching is from cloud-based services. So, I'm watching from Hulu, from Netflix, from Amazon, whatever, Google Play, Apple, whatever. And so if you could access that sort of thing and just be able to have it processed and delivered directly from the TV, you don't even have to worry so much about the local content store, because that's where most of us get our stuff anyway.
If you had to pick one pain point through all this, and I was telling Michael Ludden from Samsung a minute ago that it was nice to hear anyone from Samsung say, we want this stuff to work on multiple devices, on multiple platforms, on multiple phones, not just Samsung. To me, that was, I've always hated when it's that vertical.
Yeah.
And I want to use it on something else. Maybe not all the time, maybe sometimes on a Samsung device, but not always, right?
Right.
Not necessarily what I carry every day.
Exactly.
So what would you consider your biggest pain point for all this? What does Samsung have to fix above all else?
So I think the biggest thing is making sure that the experience through the Blu-ray players or the other kind of ad hoc devices can work as well. Because I think that starting with iOS and Android support, broad Android support is great. And that's a really strong message saying that people can start adopting this now. But the problem is that not a ton of people have 2012 or 2013 or 2014 Samsung TVs. Right. There are a lot of people who have Samsung TVs. They might even be smart TVs, but they're from 2010 or 2011, and they're not going to be able to use this stuff. So, they're saying you can use a Blu-ray player. You could potentially use maybe their streaming box that they brought out, although I don't think that they built that with this in mind. But, coming up with some ways so that you can get that experience without having to buy a brand new television set.
HomeSync is still really new. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. HomeSync is still really new, but I think even just if they can deliver a comparable experience through a Blu-ray player or something else, or honestly, I would love to see them talk to the console makers and build like a Samsung app sort of into those platforms. I don't know how much it would serve Samsung per se, except to just get more people using the ecosystem. Because I think that the only way this stuff takes off, we've been trying to get apps on the TV for over a decade.
Right.
The Yahoo was doing widgets on TV in like 2006, right? Like we've been doing this for a long time, and it hasn't taken off, I think, because everybody has a smartphone and everybody knows you can build an app for that. But not everybody knows that you have the TV powerful enough to do it. So it's about getting enough penetration so that it's worth developers' time to actually play with this stuff.
We're going to spend a lot of time on the front of the TV, I think, in the next 5-10 years. Do you think it's going to be too much? Can we get kids out? I've got 2 young kids. I have to struggle to get them outside. Yeah. And now I'm sitting here playing with all this stuff that keeps them inside a little. I
was going to say, I mean, they learn from, I learned from watching you, Dad. I learned from watching you.
Yeah, I know. It's horrible.
I didn't really go outside a lot as a kid, so I can't really, no, but I think we're going to have to do that sort of thing. But what's interesting is I think when you make it more contextually aware and you can make those experiences more portable too, that makes it easier to go outside or be in other locations. And so that's the great thing about this too, right?
And actually that was part of it, especially in the Pandora demo. It's, hey, I'm home. My phone knows it's in my house now. It knows I want to connect it to the entertainment center, not kick out on headphones or something.
Right. Exactly, and so you can have different presets set up for those types of things. And I think you could potentially, especially as content creators are becoming more liberal about letting people stream content in outside of the home and do things like that, when you can start to maybe bring that content from the TV to your phone too, and have a more seamless experience, then when you go outside, you might not even notice that you need to watch TV, but when you have to catch that episode of whatever, of Walking Dead, you can.
The smartphone wars are something we all love to talk about because we all have our fans. We all have, as our readerships, right? We all have our iOS fans and our Android fans. When you hear that Samsung is selling 1 million devices a day, does that change the equation in your mind any? Do you think maybe we've been lowballing it, or?
So I think some people have. I certainly haven't. Yeah. I mean, to me, and this has been clear since the Galaxy S3, probably honestly earlier than that, but I really started noticing with the Galaxy S3 that the 2 main players are Apple and Samsung. And I've been saying for the past year, that more people associate Android with Samsung than they do with Google. Yep. And that's just a fact. And I think the fact that they're selling 1 million devices a day is huge because you've got to also think this is across the spectrum. A lot of these are high-end devices, but a lot of these are lower-end devices. And more people are getting onboarded onto Samsung, onto this platform or not Samsung, onto Android through them than anybody else. Right. And so I think that the problem then becomes, for them, creating differentiations so that they can get developers to take advantage of all of their extra bits, which they're trying to do with things like this, and they're trying to do with some of their other SDK features. They had the Twitter demo today, which was pretty awesome. Kind of the using the pen to tweet, which is cool things like that. But it's going to be a challenge to not just become, you don't just write your app for Android. You write it for Android, but with special bits for Samsung users. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's easy to kind of overlook how big they are, and I think 1 million devices today really puts it in perspective. I mean, one of the things too, which is interesting about the TV space, is that they have been the dominant player in TVs for the last 5 years, at least, and they are so far and away bigger than their competitors. It's kind of scary,
I think you do have to look at the numbers a little bit because Android's doing what? Is it 900,000 activations a day? So if Samsung's selling 1 million devices, I mean, somewhere the math doesn't quite add up. So it's probably not all Android.
No, it's probably not all Android, but it's also probably pretty high mix, right. So, but honestly, yeah, that's right. When you think if Android's doing 900,000 activations a day, Samsung's selling 1 million devices a day, then what does that say for everybody else? I think that becomes the bigger question. Not so much what does it say about Samsung, who we've all known, I think, this big player. But what does that mean for your other companies?
Any other manufacturer, and they all say, look, it's Apple, it's Samsung. There has to be a good number 3, whether it's BlackBerry, whether it's HTC, whether it's Windows Phone / Nokia, because it's Nokia. It's
right. Exactly, and I mean, I think that's an interesting opportunity too, right? And I think that there's an interesting space for some of the Chinese companies and some of the companies in other parts of the world to really maybe usurp that space. But it's obviously great for Samsung because they're showing, hey, we're really freaking dominant.
Who do you think is best positioned to be in that number 3? Put you on the spot here.
Nokia, Microsoft.
Yeah.
Nokia, Microsoft, because especially if they keep around the Azure brand, then they're one of the only players that can sell in volume across the spectrum high to low. And I think once you get the direct integration between hardware and software, that puts them in a really strong position.
With Windows, with Xbox.
Exactly, and with making the hardware now in house too. By owning Nokia, that becomes a really powerful play. I would say it's weird. It's like if it weren't for the different, security concerns over China, ZTE and Huawei would have a lot of potential because they sell a ton of phones and they're making really good devices. I was just using the Zumbia, Zoomio, whatever. Nice little device, But I think that their problem is going to be overcoming their brand uncertainty. So yeah, I would say Microsoft, Nokia is probably the best position for number 3.
Cool. What else? That's a lot for day one, but it's still just day one. We've
got more stuff coming up. I mean, they're going to be focusing a lot of web standards. That's what I think is interesting about this conference, is that they're very clearly trying to make this as accessible as possible. It's not just about Samsung. It's not just about Android. They're trying to kind of make it.
It doesn't feel like
bigger.
an indoctrination at all.
No, it
really
doesn't. I mean, which honestly was impressive because sometimes you go to these things and they do. It feels like an indoctrination,
Right.
and this feels more like a more general mobile developer conference that happens to have a focus on Samsung stuff.
There's no chance of one of us. I mean, it's really not been that scary at all. So we got to take a quick minute, I think, and talk about your shirt because
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Veronica Mars Baby, Kickstarter Special Edition, if you see the back.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It says Kickstarter Backer Edition.
Nice,
Yep.
nice.
It came in right before I left New York to head to this, and I was like, I gotta bring my shirt. I was like, if there's any place I can wear my Veronica Mars shirt, it's a developer conference, right?
I'm trying not to focus on your hat too, but I'm from Florida, so I don't understand hats and gloves, and it's all
Yeah,
very foreign to me.
it's really hot under these lights, but I was having a really bad hair day, and so it just worked. I happened to have it packed, it just worked. And everyone's been really complimentary, so I think I'm gonna keep
It
rocking it for
works,
the rest
it
of the day.
works. I'm not much for winter fashion. I'm not much for summer fashion.
Even though you're Florida, man, so it's really hot there.
Yeah, most of the time.
You're Pensacola, right?
Pensacola, so we get like 2 weeks of winter every year,
A lot of rain every day.
and a lot of rain every day. Yeah.
But then it stops and it's pretty again. You go to the beach, you're like, I'm gonna go to the Gulf.
Be on the beach on New Year's Day. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you,
It's good
Phil.
to see you. I'll see you in 4 months.
See you, absolutely. See you later, conference buddy.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and we will be back in a little bit with another special guest.